Hi, I'm Tom Scarpello of Revology Cars, and this is car number 189, a 1968 Mustang GT Fastback in Meadowlark Yellow with black Nappa leather interior. Today I'm going to take you on a walk around of this car and we're going to go for a drive. Let's get started. Okay, 1968 Mustang GT Fastback, Meadowlark Yellow. That is a factory Ford color. It was available in 1968 and 1969. This car has our trim delete package. So with trim delete, it's a little bit more of a clean look. The badging at the side is deleted. We don't do the rocker molding as a rule on the 67, 68 Mustangs. We don't have the ornament in the quarter panel. This car's equipped with the polished version of the Torq Thrust wheel. Very period correct look for the 68 Mustang. At the back, it's all 68 Mustang GT with the exception of the exhaust tips, of course, significantly larger than the original. But that's really your only tip-off from the rear that you're looking at something other than an original 68 Mustang. Okay, so this car is equipped with the optional leather interior. It is a Porsche Nappa leather. The client also selected the contrast stitch option. It's a yellow stitch to match the exterior paint. I think it's very tasteful. It just provides that little bit of accent, which is, it helps to kind of, make the interior a bit more expressive. The aluminum trim, this is a laser cut aluminum insert. This car is equipped with the optional Alcantara headliner with matching sun visors in Alcantara, so a really nice execution. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the car has the optional wrapped steering wheel, so you get the leather steering wheel rim also with the contrast stitching, so really nice execution on the interior. So yeah, what's going on these days? The UAW, United Auto Workers strike, is over, thankfully. I have to admit we were becoming a bit concerned because we rely heavily on Ford for parts, not just engines and transmissions, but a lot of other parts as well. So we're glad that that's over. UAW has been making a lot of announcements in the media about what a great contract that they secured. So I am really interested to see the details. What I've read based on the information that's been shared so far, I was kind of surprised. The overall compensation looks to be very similar to what the Revology technicians make. And the reason I'm surprised by that is that Revology employs skilled technicians, whereas the majority of UAW workers are unskilled. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, it's just that's the fact. The division of labor in an OEM auto assembly plant, it's so finely divided that any particular job in that assembly plant, it has a very limited set of tasks associated with it. So think about like a high volume plant that builds 60 cars or trucks per hour, which is not uncommon. That means that one unit is rolling off the assembly line every 60 seconds. That means that the production line worker has to complete all of his or her tasks in 60 seconds or less. It's not very many tasks, and it's repetitive, very repetitive. So on a 10-hour shift, you might do the same thing 600 times, for example. But because it's a very limited set of tasks and it's so repetitive, it's very easy to learn. I was a supervisor at Ford, at the Wayne Assembly Plant, for 3 years when I graduated college. That was my first job with Ford. I ran the body side line, and I had between 45 and 50 UAW represented workers reporting to me. I had a couple jobs that were like the same, but one was a left and one was a right. But for the most part, they were They were all different jobs. And I thought it was important for myself as the supervisor to learn how to do all the jobs so that I would understand what my team members were dealing with every day. And so I did. And in general, it would take me maybe 10 to 20 minutes to learn how to do one of the jobs on my line. Maybe the most difficult job, maybe an hour to get proficient, where I could keep up with the line rate and you know, do good quality work on my own. But I would say on average maybe 20 minutes because they're pretty simple. And the way that the jobs are set up, they're set up in a way to make them easy to do so that, you know, people can do them without becoming fatigued, and you know, that they can be consistent. The thing is, if you have a job that somebody can learn in 20 minutes, it's not a high-skilled job. And really, in a free market economy, a job like that would not pay very well because so many people can do it. You can be easily replaced. Now, in that sort of a situation, somebody in a job like that would have an incentive to, you know, get a further education, to develop skills, to become, you know, more marketable so that they can move into a job with higher pay. But in the union environment, your pay is not determined by your skill set, it's determined by the union contract. So what you have is effectively an artificially inflated wage. Your pay is higher than what the market would pay if it was a free market. And what that does then, of course, it increases the cost of labor, it increases the cost of the product for that unionized company, which makes them less competitive. But importantly, and this is a thing I think a lot of people miss out on, it provides a disincentive to the worker to develop his or her skill set. And it makes them increasingly more reliant on the union for their economic well-being. And that's a problem, you know, because skilled workers have options. You know, if you're a skilled worker, you know, you can go and work for the company that provides you the best overall package of compensation, work environment, interesting and challenging work, and advancement opportunity. But if you're unskilled and you're represented by a union and you're making more than the market value of your skill set, of your labor, well, you're not going to be able to go anywhere else. And then you become dependent on that union, on that job. And, you know, if that plant were to close, you're not going to be able to find employment at that same wage rate, because you've stagnated and you haven't developed yourself. You know, as a society, we really have to make sure that we provide the right incentives for people to continuously develop themselves, to develop skills that are valuable. And if someone wants to increase their economic well-being, then, you know, they would focus on skills that have value in the workplace. And that's how they would do it. But it's really unfortunate, and it's kind of ironic that, you know, unions that brought us, I think, a lot of really good things. For example, you know, laws that regulate the safety in the workplaces, and policies like overtime. And I mean, it's ironic that, I mean, a lot of those really positive things that improve the quality of life and the standard of living for millions of Americans, now, you know, the unions are kind of having the opposite effect and making people less competitive and more dependent on the unions. So, you know, where do I think this is all going to go? I mean, unfortunately, I think it's just going to have to play out, because, you know, the union, and whether it's the UAW or the Teamsters or whoever, I mean, they're really focused more on the battle and not the war, because they're losing the war. You know, they'll get a short-term bump, they'll make we'll call it a win, but there's a long-term implication, because when you're driving the labor cost up above the market value of that labor, when the companies that have union represented workforces are thinking about their next major investment decision, they're not going to think the same way about locating that new investment in those union areas, and it's going to encourage jobs to go overseas. And that's exactly what's happened to manufacturing in this country. You go back to the 1950s, about a third of the workforce was unionized. Nowadays it's about 10%. So that's a massive decline, and that's all because this approach that the unions have had have driven up the labor costs beyond the market value of the labor, is encouraging these jobs to go overseas. So anyway, I guess you can tell from this, I'm totally in favor of market economics. I'm very much in favor of labor laws that protect workers. We need to have a safe work environment. I think in the United States we have certain standards that every business needs to meet, that puts every business on a level playing field. And you know what? Maybe our standards are higher than in some other countries, some of the third world countries that we compete with. But I think that's fine to an extent, because to an extent, we can be smart. We can find efficiencies to offset those higher costs to an extent. But there is a limit. You can't offset unlimited costs, but you can say, hey, look, these are our standards as a society in the United States. We want workers to be able to work in a safe environment, a clean environment, a healthy environment. We're going to pay them for overtime. We're going to have reasonable work-life balance. We're going to have good health care and benefits. And we're going to set those standards, and every company in the United States has to meet those standards. I think that's right, but I do think that the price of labor needs to be set by the market. I think people need to have an incentive to develop themselves. If they want to earn more money, they have to provide more value. Ultimately, that's the key. Anyway, that's my philosophy. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy that runs a little car company in Florida.